Walk through almost any modern grocery store, and somewhere among the health foods, protein powders, and nutritional supplements, you'll probably find a small bag filled with tiny black and white seeds, chia seeds. Today they're added to smoothies, yogurt, bread, oatmeal, drinks, and puddings. They're advertised as a source of fiber, protein, minerals, antioxidants, and omega-3 fatty acids. And somewhere along the way, chia earned one of the most powerful labels in modern food marketing, a superfood. But chia isn't new. Long before health food companies put these tiny seeds into expensive packages, people in Mesoamerica were already growing and eating them. For thousands of years, chia was food. It was cultivated, traded, ground, mixed into drinks, and valued by civilizations that existed centuries before Europeans arrived in the Americas. Then its importance declined. Centuries passed, and eventually an ancient seed found itself rediscovered by the modern world. But something changed during that journey. Food became a health product, history became marketing, and ordinary nutrition sometimes became extraordinary claims. So what exactly is chia? Why did ancient cultures value it? What actually happens when you eat it? And does modern science support the remarkable reputation this tiny seed has acquired? The story begins thousands of years ago. An ancient American crop, chia, comes from a flowering plant called Salvia hispanica. Despite its scientific name, the plant is native not to Spain, but to parts of Mexico and Guatemala. It belongs to the mint family. The plant can grow several feet tall and produces small flowers, usually blue, purple, or white. Inside are the tiny seeds we recognize today. Evidence summarized in modern scientific literature places chia in the human diet thousands of years ago. By the time powerful Mesoamerican civilizations flourished, chia had become an important crop, alongside foods such as maize, beans, and amaranth. To understand why, forget the modern health food aisle. Imagine instead an agricultural society without refrigeration, protein bars, vitamin supplements, or processed convenience foods. Food needed to be grown, harvested, stored, transported, and sometimes carried over long distances. Seeds have enormous advantages in such a world. They're compact. They're relatively easy to store when kept dry, and they contain concentrated nutrition. Chia could be eaten whole. It could be ground. It could be mixed with other foods. Its oil could also be extracted. Historical accounts indicate that chia had uses beyond ordinary eating. It was associated with traditional preparations, cosmetics, and religious practices. This wasn't a novelty food. It was part of a larger agricultural and cultural system. And then that world changed. During the 16th century, Spanish conquest transformed Mesoamerica. Governments fell. Populations were devastated. Religious systems were suppressed. Land use changed. And agriculture changed with it. European crops and livestock entered the Americas, while indigenous foods experienced varying fortunes under the new colonial system. Chia never completely disappeared. Communities continued growing and using it, but its former prominence declined. For centuries, chia remained largely outside the diet of much of the industrialized world. There were no supermarket shelves filled with chia pudding, no bags promising omega-3s, no social media recipes. For most consumers outside the regions where it continued to be cultivated, chia was virtually unknown. Then, during the late 20th and early 21st centuries, something remarkable happened. Chia returned. And this time, it wasn't simply being sold as food, it was being sold as something better. A superfood. The word superfood sounds scientific, but it isn't a formal scientific classification. There is no official biological category separating ordinary foods from superfoods. It's largely a marketing term used for foods considered especially nutrient-dense or associated with potential health benefits. Blueberries became superfoods. Kale became a superfood. Avocados became a superfood. And chia was almost perfectly designed for the trend. It was ancient, plant-based, naturally gluten-free, easy to add to other foods, and packed with several nutrients consumers were increasingly being told they needed, especially fiber and omega-3 fatty acids. Soon, chia was everywhere. But beneath all the marketing is a genuinely unusual seed, and one of its strangest properties becomes obvious the moment you add water. A chia seed may be tiny, but biologically it contains what a new plant needs to begin life. That means stored energy, protein, fat, minerals, and protective compounds. Chia is particularly notable for its fat composition. A large proportion of its fat is polyunsaturated, and much of that comes from an omega-3 fatty acid called alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. This is important because humans cannot manufacture ALA from scratch in sufficient amounts. We need to obtain it from food. That has helped create one of chia's biggest selling points, omega-3. But there is something advertisements don't always explain. Not all omega-3 fatty acids are the same. When many people hear omega-3, they immediately think about fish oil. Fish and seafood can provide long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA. Chia primarily provides ALA. ALA is itself an essential fatty acid, and chia can be an excellent plant source. But saying chia contains omega-3 should not automatically be interpreted to mean that a spoonful of chia is nutritionally identical to eating fatty fish. They provide different forms in different proportions. This distinction is a perfect example of what happens when nutrition meets marketing. A statement can be technically true while still leaving out an important part of the story. Chia also contains protein. That makes it useful as one contributor to dietary protein, particularly in plant-heavy diets. But chia isn't magic protein. Most people would need impractically large amounts of chia if they attempted to use it as their primary protein source. Its strength is the combination: fat, fiber, protein, and minerals. Chia provides minerals including calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and manganese. That sounds impressive, and it is nutritionally useful. But another principle applies here. The amount of a nutrient contained in a food is not always identical to the amount your body ultimately absorbs and uses. Seeds naturally contain compounds such as phytates that can influence mineral absorption, preparation, the rest of the diet, individual digestion, and the amount eaten all matter. Nutrition is rarely as simple as reading one number from a package. This is where chia's ability to form a gel becomes particularly interesting. Fiber can slow digestion and alter how rapidly carbohydrates are absorbed. That has led researchers to investigate whether chia might help reduce the rise in blood glucose following meals. Some small studies have produced promising results, but this is also where we need to separate an interesting effect from a medical miracle. Research examining longer-term blood sugar measures has not consistently shown dramatic improvements. Recent reviews of randomized controlled trials have found little or no significant effect on measures such as fasting blood glucose and hemoglobin A1C. So chia shouldn't be presented as a treatment for diabetes, but as a fiber-rich whole food included within an appropriate diet? That's a very different and much more reasonable claim. Perhaps no claim sells a food faster than weight loss. Chia absorbs water, it expands, it contains fiber. So the theory sounds reasonable. Eat chia, feel fuller, eat less, and lose weight. Does it actually happen? When researchers combine the results of controlled trials, the answer becomes considerably less exciting than the advertising. Chia has not consistently produced meaningful reductions in body weight or body mass index. Some research has reported changes in waist circumference, but results vary. That doesn't mean chia can't be part of a successful weight loss diet. Almost any nutritious food can be. It means chia itself doesn't appear to possess some special ability to melt body fat. And there's another obvious point. Chia contains calories. A nutritious calorie is still a calorie. Adding several spoonfuls of chia to an already excessive diet doesn't somehow cause the laws of energy balance to disappear. This may be one of the more interesting areas of chia research, because chia contains fiber, ALA, and other plant compounds.
Researchers have examined its effects on cardiovascular risk factors. The results aren't perfectly consistent.
Some analyses have found improvements in certain blood lipid measurements. Others have found little meaningful change. Blood pressure may be more promising. Several recent analyses of controlled trials have reported reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressure among people consuming chia. But the studies are relatively small, and researchers themselves caution that more high-quality evidence is needed. That's important. A food can be beneficial without being medicine. Someone taking medication for hypertension shouldn't replace prescribed treatment with chia seeds because they saw a health claim online. But including chia as part of a nutritious diet, for many people that's perfectly reasonable. Chia also contains plant compounds with antioxidant properties. You'll often hear that antioxidants fight free radicals. The reality is more complicated. Our bodies naturally produce reactive molecules as part of normal metabolism. We also have sophisticated antioxidant systems for controlling them. Plants contain compounds that interact with these biological processes in complex ways. Chia contains polyphenols and other compounds that researchers continue to study. But once again, laboratory antioxidant activity doesn't automatically translate into dramatic disease prevention in humans. A test tube is not a human body, and a mouse is not a person. The strongest nutrition advice usually doesn't depend on one antioxidant or one seed. It depends on the overall dietary pattern. If a little chia is nutritious, does that mean more is always better? No. One of chia's greatest nutritional strengths can also create problems when intake increases too quickly. Fiber. Someone accustomed to a low-fiber diet who suddenly eats large quantities of chia may experience bloating, gas, abdominal discomfort, or changes in bowel habits.
My stomach is so bloated. I think it's all those chia seeds. I ate too much and now I feel awful. This is why you increase fiber slowly.
Fluid matters as well. Remember what happened when we put chia into water. The seeds absorb liquid and swell. For most people, chia incorporated into foods or soaked in liquid is easy to consume. But swallowing large quantities of dry chia and then chasing them with water is not a good idea. There have been rare medical reports involving dry chia expanding and contributing to obstruction in the esophagus. The lesson isn't that chia is dangerous. It's that even natural foods have physical properties worth understanding. Start reasonably. Drink adequate fluids. And don't assume that because something is healthy, enormous amounts must be healthier. For most people, chia can simply be treated as another food, but individual circumstances matter. People with swallowing difficulties should be particularly careful with dry chia because of its ability to absorb liquid and expand. Anyone managing a medical condition or taking medications that affect blood pressure or blood sugar, should also remember that significant dietary changes can sometimes alter those measurements. Food can influence physiology. That's one of the reasons we eat it. But that doesn't make food a substitute for individualized medical care. Flaxseed often needs to be ground to make its nutrients more accessible. Chia is different. Its relatively delicate structure means it can generally be eaten whole without requiring grinding first. You can still grind it, but you don't necessarily have to. It can be sprinkled over yogurt, mixed into oatmeal, added to smoothies, used in bread, combined with liquids to make pudding, or simply incorporated into other foods. There is no special ritual required. And perhaps that's part of why chia became so successful. It's incredibly easy to use. Today, chia is grown commercially in several regions around the world. The seed that once belonged primarily to Mesoamerican agriculture has become an international commodity. It travels thousands of miles. It appears in expensive health products. It's photographed for social media. It's added to packaged foods. And its ancient history has become part of its modern identity. There's something slightly ironic about that. We often search for the newest nutritional breakthrough, a new powder, a new supplement, a new manufactured product promising to correct everything wrong with our diets. Yet one of the foods marketed as a modern nutritional discovery is thousands of years old. Chia didn't suddenly become nutritious when modern consumers discovered it. We simply rediscovered what earlier cultures already understood. The seed was food. So is chia really a superfood? That depends on what we mean by the word. If superfood means a miraculous ingredient capable of producing dramatic weight loss, curing disease, controlling diabetes, and protecting us from nearly every illness, no.
There is no good evidence that chia can do those things.
But if we strip away the marketing, something more useful remains. Chia is a nutrient-dense seed. It's rich in fiber. It provides plant-based ALA, omega-3 fatty acid. It contributes protein. It contains several important minerals and plant compounds. Research suggests it may have modest benefits for certain cardiovascular risk factors, including blood pressure, although the evidence is still developing. And it can be incorporated into an ordinary diet without turning breakfast into a chemistry experiment. Perhaps chia doesn't need to be a superfood. For thousands of years, it didn't need that title. It survived conquest, changing agriculture, changing cultures, and centuries outside the attention of much of the world. Then somehow, this tiny seed returned. Not because scientists invented it, not because a food company created it, but because something humans had once valued was discovered all over again. And maybe that's the most interesting lesson in the story of chia. Sometimes the future of food isn't something new. Sometimes it's something we've forgotten.